Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 21, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. After sending the guild on their way, I quickly made my way into the dungeon, but my mind was filled with thoughts of how the guild was so uncustomary getting involved with my familia and tried to actually block it off. When Apollo literally attacked Hestia's church, blew it up, and chased Belle/Hestia across Orario causing damages and scaring the civilians, the Apollo Familia only had to pay a small fine for their actions. But then again, it's not like the guild actually has any real power, as there was absolutely nothing simple bureaucrats could do in the face of an adventurer who refuses to obey their orders. Well, other than put a large bounty on them like what they did to Rio when she slaughtered the majority of the remnants of the Evolus organization and refused to stop punishing evil when the guild tried to step in and take control of the situation. Good riddance for bad rubbish when it comes to Evolus. They were insane anarchists who wanted to live by their own insane rules or were being led and brainwashed by equally if not far worse deities who reveled in bringing evil to the world. As I entered the dungeon, cloaked in my new desert cloak, I noticed I was already being followed, so with my summons put away as I walked through Orario, I just paid the toll to take the elevator down towards the first floor and joined the train of adventurers going deeper into the dungeon. "You with Ishtar?" I asked softly as I was pinned in a diamond formation. The crowd of adventurers began splitting apart quickly as we reached the wide-open floors of the 9th floor, where the rooms and tunnels basically completely opened into wide-open fog-filled chambers with larger monsters within like the orcs and silverbacks. "Just keep walking, kid." I heard a woman speak from behind me and I felt a metal weight hit me on the shoulder, making my face twitch, but my armor rating held up, but the impact. But yeah, no, I wasn't going deeper into the dungeon to come meet with a larger ambush. "Then you four can just die," I muttered as a long golden trident appeared in my hands, and with a dash forward, I stabbed the person who had taken the point position and was keeping other adventurers or monsters from looking at my situation. I could hear the woman in front of me drowning in her blood as the triangle-pronged trident went through her spine and into her lungs as I forced it through her skimpy Amazon clothes. But the moment I let go of the trident, I was engulfed in a skin-tearing sandstorm as I used my desert cloak, which I got from the Desert Scrooge, to blind and sandblast the almost completely bared flesh from their bones. The Amazons around me only got to scream for a couple of seconds before they fell in agony to the ground, as being sandblasted on your bare skin by sand going at insane speeds was debilitating, to say the least. Wordlessly, as even when the nearby adventurers quickly made space around our altercation and watched without saying a word, I walked over to the Amazon who was behind me and was probably a level 2, maybe 3, with how her skin wasn't completely blasted off her, leaving only a bleeding muscular mass. "Fucking Ishtar." I cursed as I used my foot to roll the Amazon over onto her stomach so I could look at her back after I finished her off with a laser bolt to the back of her head to make her fauna rise to the surface with her death. I looked up and saw more than a couple of adventurers literally just walking by and going deeper into the dungeon without a care, but most of them were just watching my actions with only entertainment in their cold eyes, and I was reminded how fucked up this world of Damachi was. "You guys can have the other 2 girls. I have no use for them," I said as I looked at the 2 sandblasted messes of barely recognizable Amazons, and I wondered if Ishtar was so arrogant to think a level 3 could deal with me. I mean, sure, I was still a level 1 and all, but I was obviously an outlier with the stuff I could create, like how a Kratzo could make magical nukes in the shapes of swords that didn't rely on levels to use. Fuck it. Just need to get my materials and get home. I cursed as I walked deeper into the fog of the 9th floor to escape the scene of my outburst and begin my slaughter of monsters as I went towards one of the isolated main chambers of the floor. Because I had a trick to heavily increase the monster spawn rate while I made a small base to kill the much larger monsters that can't even fit within the little base I can create. Fuck you, Skeletron. All I needed is bone ashes mixed in with candle wax to make water candles, I said joyfully as I made a large box room in the middle of the chamber and literally put down a dozen such water candles. But my trick was that I had knocked large holes into the box so I could easily shoot lasers or water bolts from my aquamarine staff, while the smaller monsters like goblins, kobolds and imps on this floor couldn't get in at all. "You ants though are annoying," I muttered as the killer ants, and especially the mutated and aberrant ones, were able to stick their heads into the hole and block it off, so I would need to blast them open with my aquamarine staff's magic bolts. After like 20 minutes of slaughtering monsters that helplessly beat upon the kill box I created to no avail, I took down the water candles, and after clearing the last monsters I quickly summoned my summons outside my base to clean up and survive enemies before only then did I chance going outside my safety box to begin the grim task of harvesting the materials I needed. Because I needed a lot of fleshy materials to make the Eye of Cthulhu, Brain of Cthulhu, the Eater of Worlds, and Skeletron. And of course, the two altars being the Corruption and Crimson altars that I would need to make the boss summons to begin with. Yes, it was a pain in the ass, but after making those altars and killing those bosses, I would be set for pre-hard mode stuff in terms of Terraria gear, and with having killed those 4 bosses my growth skill would become much stronger, and I will grow much faster. As I was doing the delightful task of helping my Wolfram drone rip the spine out of an orc, I heard someone or something purposefully making noise as they approached through the fog, so I stepped away from the orc and I braced myself to begin laying a hail of magical laser bolts from my space gun at whoever was coming. But seeing the mountain of man approaching, I got rid of my space gun and instead held onto a stick of dynamite and held my magic mirror just below my sightline so I could teleport home in an instant. "Otter, what do you want?" "Stay back," I said with the dynamite in my hands, coming to life with an ominous hiss as it reacted to my mana and began burning down its wick, and Otter finally paused as he eyed the explosive. "Lady Freya ordered for you to return to the surface. You are not ready for the challenges that seek to harm you," Otter said bluntly, and my face twitched at his probably truthful words. "I am not a child to be escorted to and from at Freya's behest despite her being the top goddess of Orario," I said calmly, and Otter's boar ears twitched as he frowned. "My lady has ordered your return. I cannot disappoint my lady, but she will want you to grow stronger." "Very well, I shall watch you from the shadows and keep other adventurers from interfering with your growth, but only the adventurers," he said after a moment of thought, and I nodded in agreement as that fitted me perfectly. I needed monster materials, and I could easily deal with hordes by hiding in kill boxes, but to be frank, the only thing I feared other than a juggernaut appearing out of nowhere were assassin adventurers like Chloe Lolo and the other girls that Mia suckered into working for her restaurant. So, I quickly continued my monster farming operation with Otter on the edge of my senses, and twice I heard screams in the distance that were quickly silenced, and I prayed that whoever ran afoul of the strongest adventure was truly after me, as probably beaten to death by his bare hands as he disdained using his weapons on small fries was probably a painful way to go. Got enough flesh and stuff for the altars, so I need to move back up to the upper floors to get the chitin to make parts of the Skeletron and Eater of Worlds items. I mean, sure, I was getting a few killer ants, but I wanted to get back to the floors where they were more common, and I could trigger a small monster party on myself so I could easily gather all the materials I needed in one fell swoop. I quickly made my way back up from the 9th floor to the 7th floor, and once I got a nice and isolated room, I began my strategy of using water candles and leaving wounded killer ants to call upon their brethren to create a massive monster party that attempted to kill me, but with my space gun that and all my mana cost reduction stuff I was able to just kite them as my summons helped deal with any aberrant and mutated monsters. That should be enough materials, ugh. I groaned, stretching out my back after the umpteenth time helping my Wolfram drone extract the pieces of chitin from the killer ants. "Well, let's go home," I muttered as I took out my magic mirror, but before I could look into it and be teleported back home, I heard an unusually loud crashing noise coming from the tunnel leading to me. "The hell is that? Did some mage come to try a new spell or something?" I muttered thoughtfully, but my thoughts were broken by a scream, no, a roar of primal fury.